All right, everybody. Jennifer, we are live. We are live. Listen, I mean, this live world and streaming, sometimes we can't figure it out why certain things work some days and some days they don't with social media and live streaming. But we're a little bit late today just because we were trying to get some things to go live. And it just didn't go. Look, I lost hair. I lost hair over the whole thing. So welcome everybody for joining us today. I hope everybody is doing well. I hope everybody can hear us okay. We are using our fancy dancy lav mics today. What do you think, Jennifer?
Yeah, I mean, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us. And to some of you, I guess it's still good morning. To many of you here out east, it's good afternoon. And thanks for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm just going to say hi to everybody here on LinkedIn since this is having its issues. So welcome everybody. If you are tuning in, we didn't have our fancy dancy intros. We probably are not going to have our fancy dancy outro today. It's just not letting it go through the system for whatever reason today. So, but we do appreciate everybody joining us, and we do appreciate you liking and sharing if you could, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. We always appreciate that as well. So let us know where you are joining from today, because that is a big part of what we like to hear and where you're coming from, because we typically have people from all over the world.
We do. And what we're trying to do is incorporate all of this different regionality into some of these presentations, and taking in all of your questions and your comments and all the information that you're sharing with us as we build out this program.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, we've been doing this, can you believe it's 17 weeks?
Is this our 17th episode?
It is.
Oh, we're still married. That's cool.
We're still moving and grooving. And
I love it.
What we're doing is we're sort of doing a wraparound. This is almost version 2, if you will.
It is.
Because the first half of the programming, we really tried to give a very high level view of offsite construction, and specifically modular construction, hence the name building
modular.
And really just incorporating and inviting everyone who may be thinking about offsite construction, maybe traditional site builders who are considering modular volumetric construction, just giving them a little insight and some guidance.
Some help.
Yeah, and really welcoming them to this space, because there's room for everybody. There
is room for everybody. So listen, if you're just joining us again, please hit that like and share. But we are going to talk about design in modular, whether it's commercial or residential. And guess what, Jennifer? Big news.
Tell us.
Big news. Tomorrow we're going to be live on location at Good Samaritan Hospital in West Islip, New York. We will be streaming live a walkthrough. We did, when I say we, I was there to live stream it, but Axis Construction in ModLogic ended up putting in a 7,000 square foot modular pediatric emergency room addition during the whole COVID crisis. It attaches right to the ER that's there. It wasn't in response to COVID, but it was sped up because of COVID. And this is great because guess what? In less than 3 months, they're seeing patients in there. And this is not, and I repeat, not a cookie cutter thing. This is not, trailers slapped together. This is, solid 5-inch concrete floor, steel, all the MEPs, Jennifer. Wait until they see the MEPs. Go back and watch the videos. You don't even see this in residential or a lot of even just regular commercial. They had the things, that suck the
pneumatic tubes.
The pneumatic tubes to take medication through. Or what I like to say is, or from the bartender.
Well, not exactly, but definitely a different type of cocktail that they're sending through that pneumatic device. And these weighed what? I mean, how big were those modules?
So those modules can weigh anywhere between, it was like 45 and 70,000 ton. Right. So these are big modules. This is commercial modular construction at its finest. And it really helped some true heroes that, in New York, Long Island, really had the heavy cases of the COVID crisis. So, it was so funny, that story. They came out and they said, we work magic.
Miracle workers.
We were miracle workers. That's what they said. And it was funny.
The healthcare workers.
The healthcare workers said that to us. And it was funny. Jim Gabriel from ModLogic looked at them and said, "No, you guys are the miracle workers."
Absolutely.
So it was kind of neat. I wasn't fast enough on my toes, believe it or not.
Yeah.
He caught that one.
Yeah, but it is really exciting to know that this pediatric ward, this pediatric edition came together so quickly. 16 modules set over the course of 3 days.
Yep.
Open in 3 months. Collaboration between Axis Construction and ModLogic, where the modules were actually built inside the factory and assembled inside the factory, and then taken apart for transport and reassembled on site. So,
yeah, they did. They put it together before they even delivered it, which makes so much sense when you're on tight timelines. And this is going to be outside of a major area where there's a lot of COVID patients at the time. So I think it's absolutely awesome. So the president of the hospital system is going to be there, Good Samaritan. I think the bishop's going to be there. There's going to be all kinds of people here. So it'll be a lot of fun bringing that live walkthrough to you guys. So
definitely. And that's a great segue for today, because today what we're talking about is how to design for manufacture and assembly.
How?
So, the buzzword, the acronym out there, Dfma, if you will. We're going to talk about that today and how that relates to both residential and commercial construction.
Yeah.
And so much, we talk about the planning process. We talk about the collaborative effort that happens up front with volumetric construction, how we really are very planful, asking all the questions and really thinking things through up front so that we can capitalize on speed and efficiency once we're on site.
Yeah, 100%. And really this whole design for manufacturing and assembly is just a testament of, designing, into the manufacturing so it can be assembled quickly is a very, very big proponent in offsite construction and moving it forward. So this is a very new word to the industry as a whole, but the reality of it is it's been in play for quite some time now. The automobile industry has done it forever.
Yeah.
Forever.
And we can actually talk about some of that detail as we jump into our deck today. But Dave is absolutely right. This is not a new concept. This isn't really at the forefront in terms of innovation. However, the adoption of it in construction, the adoption of it in offsite construction is definitely moving the innovation needle.
It did. It really is. It really is. I mean, the technology that comes with this type of design, manufacturing, and assembly is part of what's driving the industry forward, and I think it's great.
Yeah, so it's a technique, but it's also a mindset. So we've been challenging you guys in terms of zero punch lists and, checking off all your checklists and doing your due diligence.
Checklists.
Right. So Dave loves them. But design for manufactured assembly is really a mindset where you ask the questions up front, you get the collaboration up front from all of your cross-functional partners, and you reduce the risk of change orders in the field. You reduce the risk of any changes in the field, any decisions that need to be made on site. That's why you're pulling forward. The decisions need to be made regardless. So this is just a mindset where those decisions are made up front through a very collaborative effort and a lot of information sharing.
Ton of information sharing. And Jen, you're absolutely right. It's about checklists. It's about, crossing your T's, dotting your I's in the very beginning of this process. So why don't we jump into it and not waste any time, because everybody, I'm sure, lives for our PowerPoint presentations.
I know. They're so boring, but it helps us stay organized.
Yeah, it helps us stay organized.
Otherwise, we're just going to sit here and talk to all of you all day long.
Who wants to just talk to us all day long? Go ahead, tell us. Or you can tell us to off wherever you want. All right, let's hop into it. So Jennifer, how to design for manufacture and assembly. You're going to tell me now that I need to move to the next slide. I already know that.
So well.
All right, DFMA, design for ease of manufacture of the parts that will form a product and for ease of assembly. So go ahead.
Yeah, so the goal is to manage cost, right? I mean, in construction, that's the big bad four-letter word is manage cost. In the early stages of design development. So what also goes into DFMA is what we call value engineering. Can that be done just as well, the same level of quality, but value engineered for better cost performance. So that's a goal for DFMA. And then the strategy is really to break down those walls that sometimes exist between design and manufacturing, or design and construction in the field. What we're trying to do is bring those two teams together.
Yep.
And set everybody up for success.
Yeah, sorry, I was pulling that back up, so I wasn't really listening to you so much because I wanted to make it full screen. But it really is about bringing everything together, and we talked about it in the very beginning. It's all about all of these four different components really working together in collaboration in the design process, so it strolls down the line just like a manufacturing process should.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Next slide.
Yes, sir.
All right. What do we got here, Jennifer? Let me move this out of the way.
Yeah, so this is an example of how others are winning with DFMA. And this is a study that has been done from across many different industries. This is just not construction. This is average reductions from a traditional approach across the automotive industry, the tech industry, so many different industries out there who, are in the business of product development. Everybody from Dell computers to Harley Davidson motorcycles. It's all about designing before you manufacture. So these are some reasons why this is such a powerful tool in your tool belt. You reduce your assembly time. The time
61%.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a lot.
Huge number.
Yeah, for sure.
Operations, huge reduction there. Separate fasteners. So when you're building in terms of components or volumetric modules, there's fewer connection points on site. So there's fewer need.
So, I mean, if you look at this list, you're going to be above a 31% time reduction across the board, above 31%. And I'm just going by the, separate fasteners, right? 69%, 31% increase is the minimum of what you get by using this.
Yeah. And that's just it. It's what components can you build offsite, pull it forward, and still deliver that resilient, high quality, durable product. Another one that I love, the service calls, and the one that everybody loves is faster to market. Right?
Faster to market, heads on beds.
Absolutely. Faster to equity. People are making money. We were talking to some architects recently who were talking about, and obviously this was pre-COVID, but they were talking about the speed required to build hotels and resort locations. And the way that they measure time and profitability is how fast can we get that bar open? Right. With that beautiful view of those Florida beaches. How fast can we get that?
Bring people in
open?
So they can start seeing what's happening.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So when you think about time to market and faster to equity, those are some examples of why this is a win.
Yeah, I think this is a great visual. So why DFMA construction, right, Jen? So we have a streamlined methodology in a fragmented and antiquated industry. Did you really just put on there fragmented and antiquated industry? Offsite, really?
No, it says in construction in general. So we're starting here. This is a win for everybody, regardless of your method of construction, whether you are choosing to use one of the modern methods of construction, offsite, volumetric, industrialized construction, whatever you want to, whatever word you want to use. In the end, we're building homes. We're building commercial
structures.
Exactly.
Well, but it is fragmented. It is antiquated all the way across the board. We tout this on every live show, and people are so tired of probably me saying it, but we are. It's horrible. It's horrible, and I'm tired of being in last place. Right. And this is helping us get out of last place. This is going to help us drive into even the next topic there, involving BIM and information sharing and things like DigiBuild are doing and others that are out there. Antiquated, I think, is even not old enough. Because, I mean, we haven't changed in 100 years. The only thing that's changed is we use, instead of plugging in your saws, we got a battery to run your saws. That's really the only thing that has changed. All right, I'm done. Let's move on,
We're not
Jennifer.
Any friends today. So I think, here we talk about involving BIM and how that allows for information to be shared and, management across the key stakeholders. DFMA, again, it is a process. It is a method of designing that final structure, but it it is also a mindset. You may not be ready to incorporate BIM into your process. However, you can still incorporate these elements, these fundamentals into your approach for designing for offsite construction.
So where does designing for offsite construction begin, Jennifer?
So let's get into it, because the last couple of shows we talked about site logistics, right? We talked about where is the site? Can we get there? What are the zoning regulations? How do we come up with that footprint? Right. That design footprint, you know, when you put together all of those moving parts, you know, can I get a trailer there? Can I get the crane there? What size modules can I bring there? So that's essentially where the design process starts. Right. Because when we do go to design that home, we're going back to all of that paperwork. We're going back to that recap that we collected
of all the field stuff, all the checklists that I mentioned earlier. So you're absolutely right. So collecting all that information, the data is what you're saying is super important in all this. You have to have the data, garbage in, garbage out.
It is. So first you need to know what you can build. Where are you? Are you on a mountaintop somewhere? Are you on you know, the cliffs of Malibu? Are you on the Rhode Island coastline? Where are you exactly? Are you in those wetlands, those questionable wetlands? First, you need to determine where you're going. You need to determine what you can build there. And then the second guardrail that we need to incorporate early on is budget.
Budget. Does everybody have a budget?
Everybody has a budget.
Everybody. I know it. Everybody has a budget. So talking about that, Jen, so how do you actually work a budget into DFMA?
Well, you know, it's a couple of things. It's going back into your history. So if you have a sense of each module costs X to deliver and assemble on site, like if you have some average numbers that you can refer to, that certainly helps. If you're working with a manufacturer, like say you don't have a whole lot of experience there, if you're working with a manufacturer, you can get a sense of what those costs
are. Well, they have the hard costs. They know exactly what it is to get their product to you for sure.
They do. And then obviously you need to layer on all of the work that needs to happen locally. But once you start thinking about what can my site physically handle, what is the consumer or the client willing to invest in the project, then you can back into your design process, if you will. Because let's face it, everybody does like rules, boundaries. You know, where am I starting? Where am I stopping?
I like rules.
What are the constraints that I'm working with? Even the best architects out there need to follow some rules.
Absolutely, they do. So, all right, with that said, does offsite manufacturing actually help the whole DFMA assembly process, right? Like when we talk about offsite and the design, why just offsite construction? Can regular traditional construction people be using this?
Absolutely, absolutely. This is not a tool that is unique to our specific niche, and that's why that first slide spoke to just construction in general, and this next slide speaks to offsite construction specifically, because when you layer on the DFMA process and all of the advantages there, on top of all of the advantages that offsite construction offer, this is where you really start to maximize your opportunity. You know, so when you think about the predictable costs in offsite construction, when you think about the productivity that we're able to achieve with offsite construction, when you think about the high quality, durable product that we're able to deliver, which in the end results in fewer service calls, less callbacks, less maintenance down the road. That's a big deal. When you talk about sustainability and our smaller carbon footprint,
that's a big deal too.
Offsite construction, that's where we really leverage the whole design for manufacturer assembly strengths, because there's less waste.
So going back to the slide we had a couple above where it showed the time savings, and all that information came from automotive industry, other suppliers, other manufacturers of products that are using this system. And they saw a minimum of 31%. Some of it was up to 55, 56, 51% in time savings, cost savings. Why are we not doing this on a larger scale? It makes absolutely no sense to me. This is what's so great about what you put together. And, you know, the research, Jennifer, and the conversations that you've been having, understanding all this, even for myself, because we're not, believe it or not, we don't sit on every single meeting together. We're doing separate things, trying to bring all this content to you. But I will say that it just makes sense to do it this way. It makes sense to use offsite construction. It makes sense to bring assembly lines to construction. So I actually love it. So if you're just joining us, go back up or rewind this when we're over. You're going to see the time savings and the value. And this is research that has been done, has been put out there. And it's the same thing that we can incorporate into offsite construction. And that's what's so awesome about this.
Right. And so it's funny because so much innovation did happen a long time ago. I think in one of our episodes, we talked about Anderson windows, for example, where at one point in time, all of the windows were built on site. Right?
They were.
And Anderson said, there's got to be a better way.
Anderson used to just in pieces assemble all their windows on site. And I don't remember the guy's name, but who were we? We were talking to Joe Arcadia or whatever was was the business marketing manager there. And he told us that they used to actually build all those windows on site. Then they got smart. And look at them now. They're huge. They're a global company. So absolutely. Good point.
Yeah. So the last point here is also extremely pertinent to today's culture, where DFMA also combined with offsite construction contributes to improved safety and faster turnaround time. So what you have, with offsite construction is you have a controlled indoor environment that you can very clearly mark socially distanced spaces. You can clean stations in between. You can really maintain current CDC guidelines in an offsite manufacturing environment. Additionally, there's less risk on site because you have fewer workers on site for fewer days. So when you think about the insurance implications of that, that's a huge win as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's the whole life cycle of what people do not look at with offsite construction. They look at a 2x6 cost here and what a 2x6 wall costs at a manufacturing facility. And that's what they look at. They don't take in all these ancillary costs like you're talking about. Insurance savings, health savings, risk reduction, right? Yeah. I mean, this goes all the way through workman's comp. Everything, liability insurance, it's all a savings, and when you add it up, it's a big deal.
It is. So you know what, I'm just scanning through some of the comments, Dave. Maybe we say a few hellos because I see a question from Joel that touches upon this topic. And I also want to bring up something that happened in a conversation yesterday with Greg Galdi from the NAHB. So
let's do that. So, hey, Rick, what's happening? I know Rick was tuned in first, so I wanted to give kudos to Rick. And then we got good old Joel Hutchins. How are you, my friend? How do you manage the extra costs associated with the DFMA approach? This conversation highlights the very large issue of valuing the design generally in the process. Vertically integrated or not, there needs to be a simpler way to design with the knowledge upfront. Bridging the data between manufacturers and designers is key to unlocking the full potential of industrialized construction. Maybe this is coming soon. Joel, you must have went to typing class, dude. You're fast. I love it.
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely you bring up great points. And I would say leave the question up, but then that gets a little uncomfortable. But
yeah, I can't do anything about that. Sorry.
So no, that's okay. We can take it down. So essentially what Dave was just saying is you have to amortize that cost, that upfront investment over the total life cycle of the product, including the time that you are spending on the site for assembly, all the way to, your service calls, your 1-year checkup, everything else. So you have to really look at the full life cycle. It will always be difficult to get to an apples to apples cost savings. But something that's really exciting is that Eric Holt and the University of Denver is conducting a study right now endorsed by, the
NAHB and NHE.
Yeah, so I'm very excited to look at that report along with, the publications coming from McKinsey and some of the others and ModX, what Ryan and Ivan Rupnik are doing. These are the testimonials. These are the case studies for which we need more data. And it is happening. And Joel, I mean, you just have to think to yourself, if other industries are winning with this approach, why can't we? Absolutely.
And just so everybody knows, because Joel and Rick and Jerry and everybody tuning in, you know, with the University of Denver, one of the things they're also doing when everybody's commenting and sharing information, sharing ideas on these live feeds and all the videos, they're actually using that for their study, which is very powerful. So like when Joel, when you asked that question, or Rick or Jerry or Henry Mickley, this is all being looked at. So all this information and data that is being discussed here is a very valuable thing for us to figure out how to move the ball forward in this industry.
Yeah, and I do like Henry's comment. I would defer to Joel in matters DFMA, and absolutely. I mean, what Joel and his crew are doing is trying to move industrialized construction forward for all of us. So there are some folks out there who, have fully adopted this mindset.
Yeah, for sure.
And so forward looking to those waves, waves rippling through the industry.
Absolutely. Let's say hi to Jerry. Hey, Jerry, good to see you, my friend. Way to go. Thanks for tuning in. Now, here's somebody that believes in design for assembly right there.
Definitely.
I think you do, don't you, Jerry?
Yeah, so.
Rick Hawkins, although most developers are looking at the commercial side for efficiency, but the process works for multi-unit horizontal for infill or small lot with subdivisions. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, Rick, I bet you could attest to this, that DFMA is a fancy term for some good logistical homework that a lot of people were doing way back when. We don't want to throw everybody into this big bowl of soup that across the board folks, are just slackers. That's not what we're saying. There are people who have adopted this mindset long ago. They may not have had the jargon terms to use or BIM to help them through the process. But essentially what you're trying to do is think everything through, even if you're still drawing in two-dimensional drawings.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to put on your 3D goggles when you look at them and see through walls and see how the volumetric modules stack on top of each other, because everything needs to line up. Yeah,
100%. I agree. All right, Jennifer, should we get back into it here? And then we're going to come back. We'll get back to Rick. We'll get back to your comment. I flashed it up on the screen there. And maybe we should bring Joel into our conversation.
Yeah, we've been having a couple of sideline conversations, and like I said, I'm super excited to see what's coming out of from his team.
Yeah. So hey, Joel, let's maybe have you on. Rick, I've asked you 500 times, and you tell me when you want to come on.
Well, he's perfect like this.
I know he likes this thing. I know, but he always has something good to say, and I love that.
Yeah.
All right, Jennifer. So are we on to the next slide?
We are.
Design tips. Design tips. Are these ninja tips?
These are some ninja tips that are tried and true, at least from our short lifetime in residential modular construction, but certainly applicable to commercial construction as well. So again, if you're new to the space, if you're new to
20 years.
Well, compared to some. If you are coming from that traditional site-built world, moving into volumetric construction, there are some things that you definitely need to know before you just start, sketching.
Yeah, 100%. Understanding, and we talk about this, and it's like beating it down, but you got to understand the federal, state, and local codes and transport regulations. If you're just getting into this and you're going to build in multiple states, whether it's residential or commercial, we all know this already coming from a residential background, but with offsite construction, you really need to pay attention to what the rules are, not just at the building code, but transportation rules, delivery times, when, some towns won't even let you deliver during the day. And at night, they have you deliver, and then they yell at you because they're backing up in a residential or commercial area, and everything's going beep, 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 and neighbors are complaining. So you need to understand all of these different regulations and rules.
Yeah, I have found that flowers and candy and cookies definitely work well when you're dealing with the neighbors. Not sure if they deal equally well.
No, with the investors, you got to take them bourbon. Bourbon. So,
but just in understanding, where are you going? Again, it's the logistics. It's the homework that we did a few episodes ago with our site surveys and our transportation, making sure that we can get there. Are there any low bridges or overpasses or weight restrictions, that sort of thing? And then just understand what the common widths, lengths, and heights are of the modules.
Well, that's a big deal. So, it depends on where you're at, right? If you're in the Carolinas, the Midwest, out west in certain areas, I mean, you can go as wide as they can do them out there and as long as you want to go, right? Long, straight, boring. But depending on where you're at, if you're building in, urban lots, if you're infill, you're doing infill residential, infill commercial, hotels, whatever that case is, there's some limitations, and it's based on transportation. It's based on making turns. It's based on DOT, Department of Transportation regulations, on what they're going to allow you to transport. And where do you find that equal medium between cost effective and the permitting so much it makes the job unattainable, right? Yeah. And that's where modular kind of falls. If you stay within certain parameters that the DOT has set, where you're building, and you really do your upfront work on where these are going, you can design this whole thing with length and height right into the design process in the very beginning.
Definitely. And a great example of this are the two Pittsburgh job sites that we recently were on. First was module, and then the other was blockhouse residential. Both of them used modules that were 16 feet wide, 9-foot ceilings, but different lengths. And just by being inside of those spaces, you can see how big and open they can be. And then when you start setting them next to each other and you're setting them on top of each other, and you're playing like Legos, right? You have L shape, T shape, I shape, there's so many different things that you can do with the modules, but really you want to stay in multiples of the widths. Just so that you're not creating an unusual size. Yeah,
I mean, you can do it. I mean, it's not a big deal. It just depends on if it's a roof line or where it is. So I think what you're saying is, use the economy of scales, use the efficiencies of design, and by making equal parts, that happens. But unfortunately, in today's world, I mean, it doesn't always happen that way. But that's where you can design for really engineering efficiency. Yeah. Value engineering, I think is what we call it.
Exactly.
So for sure. And then considering, when you're designing, you also got to consider, like you said, your roof. Your roof adds height to all these things. So those of you that don't do modular, you may say, hey, I want a 9-foot, for second floor, but bridge height's 14 feet. You're on top of your trailer, that's towing it. The numbers don't always work. You need to understand what you're designing. You're going to go for a 12-12 pitch. That's a fold back and probably some extra roof boxes or ridgeline boxes that are going to run with that. So designing and understanding where you're designing is what, Jennifer, you're talking about. And that's understanding that. And that not only goes from the roof, but also the dormers.
Absolutely. And a lot of times, people might even put dormers on a separate carrier. They might lift them into place. They might build them as their own separate units. So there are lots of creative ways and lots of workarounds to still get that custom look that you're looking for. Just keep in mind, when you're working within these parameters, you are, creating those efficiencies, those economies of scale. That modular construction definitely offers a unique advantage.
Sure does. And DFMA isn't necessarily designed for the custom one-off builder, right? They can use all the practices, they can do those things, but there are also things that you can incorporate on site. Right. The DFMA standards and the really great efficiencies come out of residential, commercial. So when I say residential, repeatable business over and over. And all the studies are showing that that's kind of even where the residential market's going with the millennials and others, coming up with great designs, interior layouts, high efficiency, low energy build, healthy homes is where it's heading. So what does that mean? That means we're going to be able to get more into a DFMA process on a lot more homes in this country and help make up this 1 million home deficit that we have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. With healthy homes, by the way.
Healthy homes.
So that's the goal.
Yeah. So next slide. I saw the look. What are you doing? Sorry.
There we go. So Dave sort of touched upon this, roof lines definitely come into play. It's something that you have to plan for in terms of what that module will look like when it's being transported.
Yeah, for sure.
And what those dimension lines are.
You have to know your heights, right? And this is where getting into 3D modeling, the factories can help you with this too. We've been doing this a long time. The factory's been doing it even with their 2D CAD programs and what have you. But getting into 3D modeling, you can BIM all of this out. You can look at bridge heights if you want. You can say, hey, listen, I want 20 PSI in my tires because 30 PSI in my tires is going to be too inflated to get me under the bridge. I'm kidding. Don't do that. But we've had to do that to get under a bridge here and there. So, but the reality of it is you got to pay attention to all these things. Roof lines make a big difference, not only on height, I got my pencil like I'm a teacher. Not only on height, Jen, but guess what else it pays a big difference on? Width. Width, right?
Yeah,
so
of the overhang.
yeah, so when you're shipping a module, whether commercial, residential, most of the transportation rules are going to say, hey, if you have an exterior light or an exterior GFI, that counts towards your width. Right? If you have, let's say, a GFI box cover on there with the plastic cover, that counts towards your width in a lot of states. So these are things you have to look at. If you have your eave overhangs, you say, hey, I really want that 16-inch or 24-inch eave overhang. Great, you can have that. We got to look at it differently and flip them back forward, because guess what? It counts towards your width in a lot of states. So remember that when you're designing, that height and width isn't just about getting under bridges and through an underpass. It also has to do with the regulations, and all the little things count.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, this is all about getting through that first exercise, because once you get through that very first exercise, you're going to learn so much along the way. It becomes very real. Learning. Yeah, absolutely.
Should I give my education costs money speech, or have they heard that too many times? Education costs money. All right, we're moving on then before I get thrown out. Okay, so here we go, Jennifer. Ceiling styles and heights also is another issue when designing, not just ceiling, but that plays into the ceiling height, right? You want vaulted ceilings, cathedral ceilings, or any of those things. They all play a role in what you can do and what you can't do at the manufacturer. However, you are not limited to anything that you want to do, even with Dfma. It's just a matter of what you take on site, because every house is a square for the most part.
Yeah, no, but this just brings up a really good point, because when you're doing some of these design elements, when you're including them, again, especially for those of you who are still working in two-dimensional plans, with your clients, you have to think about where that coffered ceiling crosses a mate line, possibly, or connects with a flat ceiling, and how does that get built in the manufacturing plant? So these are the details that you need to be looking at. Again, if you're modeling in 3D, it's much easier. But if you're working on paper, you just have to see where those different ceiling techniques come together and where you're crossing mate lines. So the marriage line is a really important element from a design perspective, and we're going to talk about that a couple of different ways. But when it comes to where different ceiling styles meet, you really need to pay attention to that. And I'm just going to back up. You don't have to put it up. Just in terms of homes that are set on piers and other things like what we were talking about earlier with bathrooms in the
pods. Location. So you're not limited to where your locations are for bathrooms or kitchens or toilets or any of those things, is what we were getting at. However, with the Dfma and assembly, man, if you could design houses with the core house having bathrooms and kitchens all around it, the efficiency of that structure is through the roof. But you're not limited to that. You can have bathrooms on any side of the house you want, just like any traditional home. Plumbing is not expensive these days, right?
And I mean, this is true of traditional site-built construction. When you cluster mechanicals, when you set wet areas, in a contiguous configuration, that's where there are efficiencies. What you do need to pay attention to, again, on these two-dimensional drawings, are where your plumbing drops come together from the first floor to the second floor and into the basement. So you need to be looking at your paper drawings, if that's where you're still working, and make sure all of those locations line up. Additionally, if you are building on piers, or if you have bathrooms in overhang locations, work with your factory to finish either underneath or the sides, the soffits, so that you pay attention to freezing pipes, right?
Oh, sure, absolutely. We've had that
with the factory.
Yeah. You have to think about that, because when these units are coming together, this is a pro tip, right? Coming together, especially in Cape Cods and so forth, you want to make sure when that top module and bottom module are coming together in cold climate zone, that you have that well insulated right at that drop point where the top plate and bottom plate of each unit are hitting each other, because that is an air infiltration point. Not only for air, you can seal that all you want from the outside, but that wood's not a good insulator. So if you don't have that insulated properly, that can cause enough cold close enough to an outside wall plumbing access, facility, bathroom, whatever. And before you know it, you got broken pipes in somebody's house and they are not happy.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about your air tightness and ventilation and insulation and how all those, work together, leverage the manufacturing facility, design into that in front, don't leave that to be done on site. Or if you are leaving it to be done on site, definitely have a plan for it. But exposure to exterior walls or exterior overhangs, either for homes built on piers or there's bathrooms that, hang out.
For sure.
Above the base structure.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just looking, there's a whole conversation going on here between Henry and Joel and Rick. It's kind of funny. We should put it up.
Well, that's what it's all about, right? These sidebar conversations
I love
as people are networking, and hopefully they're, not poking too much fun at us. But this is what we want to do. We want to inspire these conversations.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. Absolutely. I agree. So Henry Mickelberg, I would defer to Joel. We put that one up there, and then Joel went back. Henry Mickelberg, thanks. Maybe you know something. Joel, let me know about us talking about you being a guest one of these days here soon. And Tech Facilities seem to design. All right, so I had this up earlier quickly. For as Dfma, volumetric becomes less friendly to the process based on one-off custom homes. And that's something we also touched on. And I 100% agree with you on that, Rick. It really does. Transport rules and regs are major limiting issues for width and height. You're 100% right. And you know what's really cool, Rick? I had a long conversation with the NAHB on this, and I brought some things to their attention, and hopefully we'll get some traction on fixing some of these things, because we are treated differently because of manufacturing, because of transportation. But on the other side of this, we have a deficit of homes. There should be nothing limiting us from getting homes built for people that need them.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the NAHB wants to protect consumers, and, transportation is a tricky thing. You don't want to put anybody in any type of risk, but certainly this is an area that can be looked at and evaluated to make sure that the risk benefit is there. So good point. Hope is good.
Hey, look, you finally got somebody agreed with you.
Here's the deal, though. Hope is not a plan. So we need a plan.
Hope is not a plan.
So thank you for that.
I hope it's a plan.
What we're trying to do is encourage people to come up with a really good plan and really adopt the planning process.
Yeah. All right. Was it the 5 Ps?
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to say what the 5 Ps are.
If anybody knows what the 5 Ps are, write them out there. Don't worry. You don't have to be socially correct around me.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get back to this. Give us the 5 Ps, everybody.
Yeah. So we talked about the importance of looking at marriage lines, and as it relates to open spaces on where the modules come together, there's a big myth out there. You can't have those open concept floor plans and, volumetric construction. And that's
so not true.
It's just not true. Again, there are solutions that may need to be employed in order to achieve the desired result of your client, especially in those custom cases. But it can be done.
Absolutely. You may have to give an inch or two here or there to make it work within a system efficiently, but doesn't have to be that way, for sure.
Right.
100% agree.
Yeah. And another big thing, again, if you're working on paper, is pay attention to your windows and your doors. Any structural openings that may cross marriage lines, obviously those will then need to be installed on site, right? You can't have a front door crossing a mate line. You can't have windows crossing a mate line. So just as you're thinking about your elevations and placement of everything, just think about where the modules come together and see what works best from a design perspective, but also from that value engineering perspective.
Yeah, 100%. Winner! Planning prevents piss poor performance. Thanks, Rick. I knew you and I were on the same page. All right, I agree. I love it. Henry, really sound and pragmatic advice, guys. Thank you so much. And listen, we're really going to get into it now in this next slide, Jennifer, talking about windows and openings and things that happen on site, that if you're really not paying attention to everything that you're doing on the first and second floor, or third floor and fourth floor, it all translates down into the basement, right? So let's talk about this. Let's talk about this a little bit. All right, so triple checks on the plans, interior and exterior elevations line up. A lot of manufacturers are still using old CAD software because it's designed and it works with their production lines the way they are today. However, a lot of times you will find they design and they put the window on the floor plan, but somehow it magically never made it to the elevation. Magically. You need to be checking these things. It's very, very important that you're checking these things. Some other things that happen are, drops and chases, vents, and radon pipe. We were on location not too long ago, and I'm not going to say names, but one of the things that happened was they had some radon pipes and what have you coming down the exterior wall, right? And that came all the way down the exterior wall, hit the basement top plate, and underneath that top plate was the basement hopper window. Well, what the heck do you do now? Now you can't come out and go down in front, right? So this is where you need to start from the basement, and you need to run all the way up, and you really need to pay attention. And again, if you're one of the lucky ones that have it in the budget or can afford to put BIM or 3D rendering software, it will eliminate 99.9% of these issues, because you'll be able to just look at everything and exactly where it goes in 3 dimension. And that's a very powerful thing.
Right.
Because that costs some money to fix what they had to fix on site.
Absolutely. And that's what we're trying to mitigate. We're trying to plan for all of this. So the other thing you need to be aware of is the factory may not even look at your foundation plan. So in this example where everything was perfect, from first floor, second floor, the factory really isn't paying attention to what's happening in the foundation. Yeah,
they'll give you the weight loads and the engineering loads and where your points need to be. But outside of that, a lot of the factories aren't designing that.
No.
That's on you or your structural engineer to take what they have drawn and work it into the plans to make sure that everything's going in the right direction.
Yeah, and it is just so important to look at windows and doors, especially header heights. So again, if you're working in those 2-dimensional drawings and you have 9-foot ceilings on the first floor, you may want to consider a bigger front door. You may want to consider raising the windows.
For sure.
You may want to consider where that kitchen window sits above the kitchen sink, for example. These are the details that you need to be on the lookout for, because when you're framing on site, when you're doing this on site, a lot of that
you can see it visually
is called in the field. But this is, what you're giving the factory, they are building that.
Yeah. So what you're saying is if I decided that I want a 9-foot first floor, Jennifer, I should be using a 3059 window instead of a 3049 or whatever the numbers are.
Yeah.
Right. To get the height difference. You're going to end up with 2-3 feet above your window. It's absolutely true. I already knew this. I'm just playing, off gen. But the reality of it is, you put in an 8-foot door versus your standard door. Do you leave your windows down? Do you leave them up? You have to double check and triple check all these things. And we always say, I like when I ask the manufacturer, make sure you put the height from the ceiling to the top of the trim, ceiling or floor to the bottom of the trim on your plans in a detail so you can see what you truly have throughout the house, first, second floor.
Yeah, and any of these envelope details, these envelope decisions like window sizes, door sizes, roof pitch, any of that, you want to lock that in before you go to engineered plans.
For sure.
So what you need to do, or what we recommend, is a check of the plans prior to going to engineering. Yeah. That's when you want to lock in your ceiling heights, your structural openings, and your roof pitch for sure. Some of these cosmetic things can wait, a little bit further down the road. But the other thing that you want to think about too is future finished spaces, attics or basements or spaces above site built. Components like a garage, for example, you need to call out where you might need some plumbing, where you might need some chases, where you might need some additional light switches.
Future chases in modular or a volumetric or even panelized. Having that stuff in place 100%. It's always smart to put, future chases in. But Jen, let's talk about mechanical chases.
Oh, for sure.
If you're going to run your HVAC on site, or maybe the manufacturer is going to do it depending on what their setup is and if they have the ability to do that for you. You really have to understand that. We were at another job site, on location shooting, and same thing. What happened? The chases didn't line up. They had to reroute and redo utility space and closet space to accommodate rerouting the system. And that's even with a high velocity duct system.
Yeah.
Those are just little. These aren't even the 12 by 24 trunk lines.
Yeah, thankfully there were small units that we needed to reconfigure, but this is the stuff that happens even with people who have been doing this a very long time. So that's why we're just trying to share some tips and tricks. Yeah.
Tips and tricks, ninja tricks, as Angel would say.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so Where are we at here? Let me put this back up. All right. Hallways, stairwells, doors, door swings,
Yes.
attic access, right? Preliminary check at the engineering phase and final check prior to production and release. So one of the things, even with DFMA, that you really need to do, and I know you were gonna say something. Did I cut you off? Did I cut you off?
No, you're good.
So one of the things that's super important is a lot of, and we said this before, the manufacturers want you to sign off on their stuff, right? And there's contract negotiations on that we can get into at another time. But what you truly want to do is you got to get your highlighters and pens out, and you need to look at every inch, every window, every door, every location, every swing. Make sure the trim detail's the right width, so you don't end up with a piece of cut trim in a corner and not able to do your light switches. You need to go through these plans piece by piece.
You really do, and we don't see too much of it lately, but, there's always that one-off chance for people new to the space, not thinking about how far that from, if you're thinking about a center hall colonial,
right,
for example, where that door swing, that front door swing goes, where the stairs are in relation to each other. You have to really physically, virtually walk through your floor plan and touch everything on paper. And line them up, line everything up.
Yeah, 100%. Rick Hawkins is giving us some shout outs. Thanks, Rick, man. We love it. We do. Planning. Well, we did that one. You know what, Rick? This is actually going to be my thumbnail.
Oh my God.
I'm going to use this as our thumbnail. It just says it all.
Yeah.
It just says it all. Really, we said this. All right. Thanks, Henry. Let's go here. Any new modular builder needs to subscribe and view your Tuesday's building modular presentations on YouTube. Thanks, Rick. Yeah. We're gonna we'll put the post up here in a second once I get through this presentation because I have to go to a different screen. But you're absolutely right. I really do appreciate you making mention of that because that's where you can find all these new and past episodes. Everything we're doing, everything. So love it, Rick. Rick's really busy today. Even architects considering modular should also subscribe.
Interesting, yeah.
You know what? 100%. It is so funny, but how many architects are we talking to right now? Like literally reaching out and they're trying to figure out how do they fit into this? How do they become a part of offsite construction, right? Because it is a network, it is a small group right now and it's growing. But there is ways to do this, and we always love to help architects, that are looking to do this. So if you're interested in that, DM us, and we can talk to you about some of our services.
Yeah, definitely. So remember, change order is not a viable option for volumetric. Oh my God, no on-site revenue stream.
That's another great thumbnail. I don't know which one I like better. I wish I could put them both up there stacked.
Well, it's a T-shirt, no change orders.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right, Rick. This is why we're pulling forward the planning process and encouraging not only offsite volumetric builders to do this, but anybody. This is a win for everybody to include the consumer. We heard a statistic recently where construction jobs, or I think it was McKinsey, right? 80% overruns, cost overruns.
Oh, yeah. 80%, right. It was the McKinsey report.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just insane. Think about if some of that that money was repurposed back into building a healthier, more attainable home for all of the people in need right now. I mean, just think about that for a minute.
Maybe we should figure out how this report goes, Jennifer. Sorry, I'm pumping you. We can figure out how, I got so excited. Figure out how these reports go. 80%. Let's figure out how we write that up and we go into all these, big builders and we say, listen, we'll save you 80%, but we want 60% of your savings.
Oh my gosh. Well, we'll have to make sure we determine where our mouth is in this.
Rick's on board. I know it. And so is Henry and everybody else.
Yeah.
And Joel. Let's do it.
So this episode is not designed to scare people into how much work that goes up front. This is really designed to share with you the rewards, the fruit of your labor.
So right now is another good time. You can see it in the ticker below. Again, on site, 7,000 square feet of commercial space. Now I should actually pull a photo up of this little thing. Less than 3 months. We're doing the ribbon cutting. This is a pediatric modular addition on Good Samaritan Hospital. About somewhere around 7,000 square feet. 16 modules. That is DFMA at its finest. This has been built and put together, and now it's on site. And these healthcare workers that have been busting their butts for months and months and months, risking their own lives and their families' lives, are now have another 7,000 square feet. So that's the value of what you're just saying. plan up front, pull it all together because you're doing it anyhow.
Right.
Take the time to be detailed about it, and you're going to win, and you're going to win big, and you're going to save money, and everybody's still going to like each other at the end of the project.
Exactly.
Just like we're going to show you tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it's all about. Collaborative efforts that are reproducible, repeatable. That's where the long game really is. So hopefully we shared some good information with you guys today, with all of you. We do welcome all of the comments and the feedback.
We're going to get to some more comments here in just a second.
Yeah.
So Jennifer, we end every show because we are not sponsored by any of them. They should consider that though. The NAHB, Building Systems Council, MBI, Modular Building Institute, and MHBA. If you're not part of them and you want to learn about modular construction, you need to get involved. You need to start networking. You need to start collaborating, whether it's on our show, which we absolutely love. And we thank everybody for always tuning in and doing this because we put a lot of effort into trying to pull it together. But these are other places you should go and be a part of. And also, I didn't put it up there. September, the first week of September, we are emceeing the Building Systems Council Offsite Construction Week. So that's another great place to network.
Yeah. So more to come there. But like Dave said, reach out to people who have been doing this. This is, Greg Ugaldi said yesterday, the tent is big. There's enough room in the tent for all of us. On-site, off-site, volumetric, panelized, concrete, like whatever you're doing, there's enough room for everybody. Let's just all, work together and make this a better process for everybody and really embrace that industrialized construction moniker, because we need to become industrialized, whether you're on-site, off-site, all of us have room to grow. Yeah.
And listen, we're taking this show on the road. We're working on this, everybody. I want to come see Rick, Henry, and Joel. And then George just tuned in. Hey, George, what's up? Sorry, late, but better late than never. At least I can rewatch the video from the beginning. You're right, George, on our YouTube channel. Thanks to Rick promoting that in the show today.
Yeah, make sure you watch it on double time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you can speed it up so you don't have to put up with Jen the whole time. All right, that was a joke. So listen, somebody's going to take that soundbite and make me look like a real jerk on this. You got to be careful on this social media stuff, but we're putting it together, right? So we're talking to sponsors, we're talking to people out there. If you guys know anybody that would be interested in helping sponsor this, as much as we'd love to travel the world and bring this to you, it's not free, and so that helps us. But there's a whole lot of data out there that people are really interested in, and also we're going to bring you some great content. So stay tuned. That's going to be fun. All right. What else? We got Henry made another comment here. Dfma efficiencies are not without their collateral damage, often resulting in less design work and fees for architects, which may explain the resistance. You know what?
I love, or I shouldn't say that. I think it's so interesting the way that you present your point of view, Henry, because we get the same thing from the trades on site. We get the same exact thing. Oh, well, there's not enough work for me on site. Why would I take a volumetric modular job? It's in the game of volume. So you finish the job faster, you move on to the next job faster. You're able to capitalize on the volume game, and you're not, I shouldn't say the word stuck, but you're not dedicated to just one job for a tremendous amount of time. It's not that proverbial time suck, if you will.
It's not.
It's okay. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. But and you have that. You can go ahead and I start talking. and you have the backing of structural engineers as an architect firm. You got the backing of a manufacturing facility, and the fact of the matter that the industry is shifting to this. That's the cultural shift. I don't know if you tuned in for yesterday because Eric Holt, the University of Denver, came on, and the biggest holdback of our shift to offsite construction is mental. It's cultural, right? Just it's thoughts like that where they're not thinking, they're not seeing past the end of their own toes, right? Or their end of their own shoes, whatever it is. And that's part of the problem, because the matter of the fact is not all of them, but a lot of the manufacturers, and this is how we've been talking to all the architects, are reaching out to us because they need architects. They want people to bring design to this industry. Yeah. And I think that's a very good point. And it's a cultural thing.
Yeah. And here's another reason why I think architects should really embrace this. It's because would they rather showcase a beautifully drawn project on paper, on a screen, or would they rather walk somebody through the finished structure?
Right.
So by using DFMA and incorporating those design elements, those architectural elements, the architect also wins because they're faster to the finished product.
Yeah,
so if they really believe in what they're designing, then they can celebrate that and invite people to join them and experience that for themselves. And Dave's right. We have a lot of architects reaching out to us right now, and I think these people are so amazing and talented and doing such tremendous work, right? They have this vision and they're able to translate that into something that can be built. They're amazing people, very talented. But we hope that more of them will adopt and embrace this approach.
Yeah, for sure. And I just put up the YouTube channel. Please subscribe. And like I said, you can watch all the current and future and past events. And we're actually getting everything organized really nicely. I mean, we're categorizing with our playlist, so you can see on location events. There's just so much happening. And then all the great data we're getting back from universities and stuff is going to allow us to even break those playlists down even more, because I don't have the patience to sit there and watch myself for an hour and break down every little thing we talked about. But they are studying this, which is super, super cool. So you'll be able to get all that data and see everything that's happening. And as we keep updating our YouTube channel, we'll have more and more playlists that break down all the information that's important to anybody and everybody out there.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody, so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And hopefully you'll tune in for the next one.
Yeah, definitely. And listen, we're not going to have any fancy outros today. Well, maybe we will.
But you know what? We have one more slide that talks to the upcoming shows.
See, always calling me out. Always calling me out. What are the upcoming shows?
Over our time. So tomorrow we'll be live on location, like we talked about. Thursday we have Increasing Influence with Miles Biggs, which is always a great chat in terms of building your personal brand. And then this Friday with Mark Willey, we have Harris Woodward joining us from
Harris Woodward, absolutely.
Yeah, so Harris is definitely leading the pack in modular construction and doing an amazing job with his beautiful and energy efficient high performance homes. Yep. So we're very excited to welcome him on Friday on BS Friday.
Yeah, so if you don't know Harris Woodward, all right, here's the deal. When I introduced Mark to Harris, Mark's a guru and all this. So you guys tune in. And Harris told Mark how he was building and how he was doing it. Mark Willey's behind all that hair, his eyes got real big. And it's going to be a lot of fun, this conversation, because Harris has a lot of energy as well. So definitely tune in Friday. And obviously always tune in with Miles Biggs and I as we talk about increasing influence like Jen talked about. But tomorrow, please join us tomorrow, 1 p.m. We're going to be at West Islip, New York, Good Samaritan Hospital, doing a live walkthrough. Now, this is all steel and concrete, so hopefully my signal gets out. But we're going to do something live. Hopefully, it's a walkthrough. We're going to show you what can be done on a commercial level with modular. It's going to be great. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye now.
All right. We're going to tune off here, Jen. Hold on a second. You gotta go back and now say bye.
Bye now.
Bye, everybody.